because, thank you. While we wait for others to join us tonight, and how I wish everyone was here, I was asked by Grant as to how things are here in Israel. And I think it's a good introduction, actually, to what we are going to talk about tonight, which is the very foundational principles of logotherapy, without which logotherapy is not logotherapy. Then it becomes something else. So what is it that we're experiencing here? You must have followed the news and our agonized and anguished situation that we have been virtually forced into a deal with what is really called a deal with the devil. Okay? With a terrorist organization that not only calling themselves by Hamas, but that has in its wake a following of civilians, so-called, with the same ideological persuasion, which is that we, as Jews back in our own homeland, have no right to be here. That actually everything that they are doing is projected onto us as blame. We are the occupiers, we are the perpetrators of apartheid, we are the aggressors, we are the ones that abrogate human rights, we are the ones that do not abide by international law. Everything that they are doing, because as one hears a very, very fundamental truth of logotherapy, and which we will focus on as soon as I've just concluded this introduction, that each one of us are given a space, a sacred space in life to occupy. As much as on a concrete level, and also with profound meaning, nations have been given their countries to take responsible control of, to take possession of it in terms of caring for it, building it up, raising their societies to the highest level of moral responsibility. What is moral responsibility? To care for the life of another, that you will not think to intrude into their space, to oppress them, to subject them to pain and horror and suffering, and call that a mission. That murder becomes a charge. Now, this is the utter evil we are confronted with, and our agony is that in order for us, after October the 7th, and where we did defend ourselves, and miracles upon miracles have happened in terms of what we were able to achieve militarily, but also in terms of integrity and taking a stand against evil and bringing it down. As much as that was there, what was done to us is of such deep anguish that we are a nation that has been wounded, like you, in your life, when you have experienced unjust suffering and hardship at the hands of actually others that should have seen you, should have heard you, should have respected you, should have cared for you, should have embraced you, should have protected you, and should have shared a life of meaning with you, and they did not. And it leaves very deep scars and wounds that logotherapy is espousing can be healed only through finding meaning, despite all of that, and elicit in yourself a defiant power to say, I am. I have a right to be here. Life needs me. I will not retract, nor will I withdraw, and it doesn't matter what happens to me. I am filled with a mission in life, a sense of commission that is earmarked by responsibility, that I will give an account of my life that will be fulfilling to me, that will give me self-respect and a sense of unconditional worth, my word. Okay? But we're receiving back our hostages at the behest of, and at the manipulation of, and at the terrorizing of what is called, by those who have survived it and by those who are suffering from it, as monsters of evil and barbarism, of complete inhumanity. Okay? And I think what has been the deepest moment, and it is a turning point in all of our history right now, is that when a little family, a mother and her two babies, one 9 months, one 4 years, were arrested from their home, and where their parents, her parents, were murdered, and they were taken with their husband hostage, separated from him. And the mother and these two little ones became a symbol of the injustice that you do to innocent life, the life of a baby, the life of a young child, that you are not to indoctrinate with hate, but that you are to raise up in love. And when we discovered that the three of them have actually been cruelly murdered, when their bodies, first of all, not the mother, this is part of the psychological torture we are being put through, that they brought 3 coffins on a stage of victory in the presence of an applauding audience. They have victory over the killing of a baby in a little coffin with terrorist graffiti on it, and the backdrop of all those slogans that declare themselves to be a power of death over life. What kind of power is that? But when we then discovered through forensic examination that in fact the babies were strangled to death, and so was the mother. And the body that was returned was not the mother's. And when we insisted that we will not release the terrorists, that they demand in exchange murderers out of our prisons, they sent the body of the mother. But we had a funeral yesterday that really is a testimony of all that we should be, that we are called to be, And that is a fundamental principle of logotherapy, the sacredness of life in the love we exercise, in the respect and the care and the protection we exercise towards one another. The mother and her two babies were wrapped in one prayer shawl and buried in one coffin next to Shira's parents, the mother's parents, the murdered parents. And the streets of Israel were lined with mourners doing what? Carrying Israeli flags. Am Yisrael Chai was the call. All of Israel live. And this is what the sister of Shira had to say. And I end it with that. She's speaking to her dead and murdered parents, and she said, I promise you, Mom and Dad, that the monsters beyond the fence will not succeed in their mission. They will not defeat us. They will not break us. On the contrary, their mission failed because we united, because we grew stronger, because we became invincible. Wow, the defiant power of the human spirit. And now we know, and tonight I want to bring two very dramatic realizations to your mind as we just briefly go over the foundations of logotherapy, which Frankl said, this is the foundation. This is the foundation. You cannot change that foundation. If you change that foundation, the whole building falls. Okay, whatever you build on that, that will not be logotherapy. And the main principle is the sacredness of life. That you were gifted with life that is sacred. What does it mean that life is sacred? It means that you have to live it in ways that pronounce it as sacred, just as I have spelt out to you in what is happening with us here in Israel, in how we relate to each other, because that is where our responsibility lies, and that is where our identity is found, and where we can rise to what we are meant to be. Because let's just quickly flip over what you all know so very well, that man is spiritual. What does that mean? Frankl said, we can think. We can have a distancing of thought that can evaluate what is happening to us. And how do we evaluate what is happening to us? We have an inherent will to meaning, the freedom to decide whether something is meaningful or not. And what makes it meaningful? When it enhances life, when it uplifts life, when it inspires you, when it makes you believe that you are worthy, and your sense of purpose, which is to venerate life and serve it. Like Frankl said of Frankl, the meaning of his life, the meaning of your life, is to bring meaning into the lives of those who suffered and who are struggling to find it because of what ought not to be. So central to this realization of what ought to be and what ought not to be is conscience, okay? And simply summarized, do not do to others that you would not want them to do to you. It's wrong. It's hurtful. It's painful. Even in saying a wrong word and embarrassing you or humiliating you, no. To the smallest detail, no. This is how much you must respect another. And a little bit more difficult, but the same, the other side of the coin, to love your fellow man as yourself. So there is the responsibility. There is the call that Frankl said that we are most fully ourselves when we are so devoted to the well-being of others in causes that we serve, in stands that we take, that we forget ourselves, because actually this gives us an identity. We are needed. We are fulfilling the call of our lives to be responsible. And this brings us now to what I want to just present to you, because this is quite clear to you, that we have freedom of will, a will to meaning, to find meaning in life. And also, where do we find that meaning? We see that it's quite experientially very clear and true that when we do serve, when we do give, when we feel we have something to contribute to the world, and that is our creative values, and we know, we intuitively know that what we want is something true and beautiful and good, not ugly, bad, and evil. And we want beauty in our lives. We want harmony. We want the sense of shared togetherness that that Frankl says brings us into and like the sister of Shira said, brings us into this incredible unity around a common purpose of the sacredness of life. And that brings us then, of course, to the attitudinal values that we have to take a stand for what ought to be against what ought not to be. And our stand is a stand of faith that life is unconditionally beautiful and worthy and good. And we have an unconditional worth. We've got the ability to serve life in the way that is being required of us. In each and every moment of our lives, we are making a decision. Is this decision for the good, or is it selfish? Or is it complacent? Or is it negligent? Or is it committed to do the right thing in the smallest of things that I do every day? And then we come to what I just want to now put before you, and then I want us to discuss it. Because it came to me as very liberating. When we come to what Frankl said, that life is a task, when we are then confronted with kind of more fundamental, more profound issues of life, in view of the fact that we have a time span between birth and death. Our time is limited, which makes it a once given, unique, and most awesome opportunity. That Frankl said, time must be used and used well. And this task quality of life has a depth to it that I now want to put before you, which it's part and parcel of logotherapy. But you know, without looking at what I'm going to say to you now, that it is, yes, it's all about living a life of moral integrity before your conscience, knowing that your life is an opportunity not to be wasted, but there is an awareness of what is responsibility, that you are called. Called by what? By whom? And this kind of awesome awareness that you're part of a bigger picture, that, you know, and then we come to what Frankl said, that meaning is something objective, that the values that we experience, yes, they are universal meanings, but they've got an objective quality because, you know, it can happen that even there can be a time, a historical time period where the standards, like it is in our day, of an international criminal court, of a human rights council, that it's all but what it says it is. And international law here is so distorted. So, you know, we have a real task of discernment in terms of cutting through what looks right, this sounds right, but is in fact not right, and is a falsehood, and that we should come to a clarity, a clear distinction between what is really required of us, what is really good, what is really valuable, and what has just a face value, but is actually fake. And it hides a hostility, it hides an evil that we need to unmask. And you know what has happened here in Israel? We have unmasked that evil. That cried out, you know, that it was suffering and it's being oppressed and it's got a right from the river to the sea to be free. At what expense? What was the hidden motive? So distorted, because it actually was out to destroy what is valuable and good and eternal and required of us in terms of life as sacred, and our life as a task to reach moral greatness in the stand that we take for what should be in the face of what should never have been. And you know, this is actually if you want to understand evil, it actually underlines the awesomeness of who we are, created to become morally great, that the abrogation of this wonderful mission to develop into and to ever to grasp at ever deeper levels of what we are being called to be, what we've been created to be, what, like Frankl said, what we are, what we fundamentally are, is something that we have to become. It's like a baby that needs to grow up into a full grasp of what it is living for, what its life is about, who they are, who they're meant to be, right? So that task quality of life begins to have more profound roots. And it's here that I want to just take the first stand in how we are at the Viktor Frankl Institute of South Africa, but also in Israel, how we are presenting logotherapy. It's not a question of a theoretical knowledge, and it's never something that becomes a method or a technique. It's a way of life, and that is why our courses are designed to experientially take you through into considering who you are and discovering how unique and valuable and worthy you are, and to live up to that image and achieve who you are. Wow. And that is why our courses take you step by step towards the final course, which is what? To clarify your mission in life, to make it clear to you as to where you are called to be, to give that service, that and where you are truly needed. So that is a very different kind of training than an academic training in terms of knowledge, just in a theoretical sense of the word. It's a truly experiential course. And then, what do we stand for? Something quite out of the ordinary, in terms of daring to say that invested in us is an unconscious relatedness to something or somebody beyond ourselves that Frankl called the unconscious God, and that we cannot understand our lives in essence without a recognition of this fact, and that there is a suprahuman dimension of the divine that interacts with us from the life is coming to us from the outside to provoke in us what should be from the inside. This is what Frankl called noodynamics, which is much, much deeper than purely psychodynamics. It's not a psychological causation. It's a call that is coming to each one of our lives. So this, you know, there have been efforts, and I've been party to afford such efforts to just strip logotherapy from this God consciousness, or to take a reference to God out of its curriculum. If we do that, we haven't got logotherapy, okay? That's how brave we are in stating the full facts, all of it. But now, here's the liberating factor. And this is what came to me and that I wanted to share with you tonight. That, as Frankl said, who can deny that there might be a suprahuman dimension? We intuitively know it. We intuitively know it. We search for not only meaning in life, but for the ultimate meaning of our lives. We search for something that goes beyond death into eternity. Life is eternal. We either embrace it and live it, and we have the gift of eternity, or we don't, and we lose that eternity. And with that eternity that we lose our humanity, our human face. We become decadent and evil. That's it. That's the simple truth of it. But said Frankl, and here is what I want to deposit in our midst. We've got to take God out of the picture. He is, but listen, you can't preach him, you can't teach him, you can't bring him down to the human level and explain him. Above all, you can't use him as a tool of judgment. Either you believe in God and go to heaven, or you don't and go to hell. You can't do that. God is beyond any manipulation of man, and beyond our our belief systems about him. He is much greater than that. He's all-encompassing. But the all-encompassing nature of the divine is that he emanates through to our conscience, that, like Frankl said, conscience is birthed in transcendence. It's a gift of knowing the beyond. But the more comprehensive the beyond is, the more incomprehensible it is. And here is faith. Faith is the belief in the unknowable, and yet we can know him. How do we know the unknowable? By living by the transmissions that come through to our conscience. And now, I've seen people in logotherapy struggling with Frankl's concepts that meaning is objective. It is objective. It exists beyond us, beyond our being able to change or deny it even. If we deny it, we do it to our own detriment. If we recognize it and live by it, we grow in human stature. So it isn't about God. It's about whether you live by the injunctions of your moral awareness, your responsibility that you know about through your own conscience. You know, I've heard people say, I listened to that beautiful, watch that beautiful film. What was it called again? The Scent of a Woman. Where this lieutenant colonel, in defending an innocent boy that has been unjustly treated, and he said, whenever I did wrong, I knew I did wrong. I knew what was the right way, but I chose not to follow it because it was too damn hard. But it's there. We can't escape our conscience. It's impossible. And you know what? You should see evil in its desperate effort to trample conscience underfoot. That is why they sanctify what they're doing as right, and why what is right they accuse as being what they are actually doing evil. Wow, it's a great defense against conscience, a great effort to trample it underfoot and to be free of its demand upon their lives. So the simple conclusion I just want to bring to your attention is, it's like Frankl said, and like it is espoused in logotherapy, we don't deny the divine. In fact, he said that those who do break through to an actual recognition that God is, has a kind of faith that floods all of their lives with meaning, and which removes every sense of fear, because you see all of life as a school to bring you to moral greatness, to reflect the image in which you were created. And it's an astounding realization. But because it's a realization, it is immensely sacred. And the freedom, the personal freedom to search for and to find and to experience in a profoundly personal way what your client or you yourself then experience in terms of the eternal, of the divine, is sacred. This is the space that nobody is allowed to enter into. And therefore, as logotherapists, we never sit in a judgmental position with our clients. In fact, we do the very opposite. We are in awe of our clients. We are in awe of their freedom to find their own path in life. And we are there no more than facilitators, and also as those who inspire them and encourage them and assist them. And what do they want to see in us? They want to see in us what they want to see in themselves. That is why Frankl said, if you want people to believe in God, you've got to make God believable by who you are. So the freedom that just came to me is that as logotherapists, and now this is your orientation, be very in awe of the fact that there is much more to life than you can ever totally comprehend. Number one. In other words, remain open. Remain open. You know, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, one of the great sages of our time, blessed be his memory, said he had his favorite atheist was Stephen Hawking. And you'll see there's a film on Netflix called The Theory of Everything. And when Stephen Hawking, a declared atheist, was asked in the later part of his life before an audience, a great audience, you do not believe in God, but what philosophy of life do you have by which you can live? And he answered this. He was quiet for a while, and he answered, we should have the freedom to go on looking, go on looking, go on searching, discovery after discovery, from one level of grasp to the next. And while there is life, there is hope, because life is an emblem of hope. But this journey into the divine, don't make it into something that God doesn't need advertisements, nor does he only needs witnesses of the divine. That's it. But as witnesses, you never bring any judgmental element in the least into your therapy room. But you do affirm the freedom of your client. You bring out the will to meaning in your client. You assure them that meaning is to be found. You make them help discover where they find it, and they discover to their delight that they find it in connection, in sharing, in love, in what is true and beautiful. And they don't find it in what abrogates what is true and beautiful and true. So, and good. So they are on a road of discovery. And it's a precious, precious road, because it's like Frankl said, if religion is to survive, it has to be profoundly personalized, because that's what it is. Each one is absolutely uniquely called. You are a one and only. There will never be another you. There never was, and there never will be. You are you, singular, unique, with a singular and unique mission in life. And that, you may just experience that as a task before your own conscience without any God awareness. It does not matter. But what matters is whether you live by those principles that are coming through to your conscience, even though you may think that this is just common sense, because it is common sense. It is common sense. What is right works and what is wrong doesn't. When you do the right thing, it blesses you. When you do the wrong thing, oh boy, does it bring curses. Does it bring failure? Does it bring eventual collapse into nothingness? So this approach, the two fundamentals that I just wanted to highlight is that we dare to put into our curriculum a God, the concept of God, unconscious God, and the transcendent, the divine that filters through with his commands, the laws for meaningful living to our lives that we can experience in a practical, down-to-earth, here and now way. And in fact, that's so great is that freedom and that responsibility that it doesn't need you to confess that you believe in God. God is greater than your belief, whether he is or not. Okay, but that you do what you're required to do before a conscience, that you become aware, that is a knowing beyond just your conjuring up what you think is meaningful, or like Frankel said, is impossible. Whatever man cannot be his own law. Life can only have a direction if there is that goal, that magnet that draws the iron filings towards it. You cannot live without this feeling of tension, of direction towards ever more closer to. That's it. So these are what I believe our courses are about, and what we should stand by, and which are part and parcel. In fact, no, it's the very foundation of everything else that follows. So, okay, let's have any question and discussion of this. Thank you. So, just to end, with Frankel, okay, my darling, I'll now hear you.
Okay.
Frankel said logotherapy should be able to be used in the hands of anyone, agnostic, even an atheist. Okay, it does not matter. But what matters is that you are in awe of those commands that come to your conscience, and that you live by the direction that you intuitively know, whether you give it a name or you don't. All right.
So, can I say something?
Please.
Yeah. So I think that what's difficult is that both your whim, whatever pleases you, comes from you, and your conscience also comes from you, and so how do you discriminate? And that's why I think that the most important way to discriminate that unconscious God is to say, is this coming from your will to pleasure, or your will to power, or your will to meaning? Mm-hmm. That goes for the individual and for nations and for whatever. It's just, even then, it's not always easy to answer that, but it seems to me that that's a good direction to go in. Say, like, where is this actually coming from, and how do you know which of those it is?
Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Because, like Frankel said, if it's the will to meaning, then that the power that we experience is one of a spiritual stance of the defiant power of the human spirit, this freedom to be and to stand for what is right, and of course, then we have every pleasure in life that you can possibly imagine. We are free to enjoy each other, to see the beauty of life, to revel in its in whatever we contemplate and experience as a truth. I would say to what you said, Batya, to listen to your heart, to an intuitive knowing that somehow also addresses you. It calls you. It's intuitive knowing that calls you. Will to power doesn't do that, and a will to pleasure doesn't do that, but a will to meaning certainly does. Yeah.
I think, if I may answer, I think it's very clear from what you said that we have this inherently unconscious relatedness to the divine. And that is what differentiates it from the will to pleasure and the will to power. I think Batya is asking, not that she doesn't know that, but she's asking, how can you differentiate when something in you tells you this is right or this is wrong? How can you differentiate whether it's really the voice of conscience, which is the relatedness to the divine, or it is just emotions or something, or thoughts that try to convince you, and that is not the right answer. So I think it is really what you said, that if you are quiet in yourself and you really listen to your heart and your conscience, intuitively you have that knowledge of discerning right from wrong. It is a very different answer. It is a really very different answer. I remember from my life one time that something was very, very clear to me, not comfortable as a decision, but very, very clear to me in terms of ethics and morality and the true thing to do. And a friend was trying to convince me with all these rational convictions that you try from many, many, many sides, but the very one point which is in the middle of all these intellectual possibilities did not move me from my conviction. I said to her, whatever you say, it's not relevant. I know in my heart the right answer. And that's the answer of my conscience, although it is not comfortable for me.
Oh, well. And you know, the difference between you and the one who contested your thinking was that you were in touch with the unconscious God in you, which is meant that you are in touch with who you really are. You were in touch with yourself. You know, to me, such a conviction of or an affirmation of what something is right, that I feel at home with myself. I feel good in myself. It's like a homecoming. It kind of it gives me an identity, which is one that I begin to respect myself. I value myself. I love myself. This is me. This is me. And she was, you know, and this is the intellectual why Frankel said, the heart has reasons, and that you also quoted in your talk, that reason cannot understand. Because, you know, I'll read you a quote from Frankel now to just make this so clear. But she was running away from being in touch with herself. And, you know, and if she was a client, one would want to know why. Why is she running away? Has she got a wrong perception somewhere that is lodged in her as an untruth, where she may have been hurt, and in a self-defensive way, she's running away from that realization that would render her helpless or make her feel accused by what happened to her as, you know, rejectionable or this, that, and the other. You know, that is what we do in logotherapy, in our therapy. We talk about the meaning crisis, because if we can bring her to an understanding that what she's running away from, really looking at it, not as some kind of psychological trauma or something that says something bad about her, but as a meaning crisis. Something happened to her that shouldn't have happened to her. She wanted something that would make her feel at home with herself, encourage her to be herself, to reach out like a loved child in an exploration with excitement and adventure of life that is seen as a possibility with all its miraculous and wonderful moments, and not withdraw from it into a shell of self-protection. And I'll just read you this, what Frankl said in this regard. What is missing in so many psychotherapies is a form of psychotherapy which gets underneath the affect dynamics. She's running away from emotions she doesn't want to feel, which sees beneath the psychic malaise of the neurotic his spiritual struggles. We must see the distress of the human spirit and try to alleviate this distress. If we do not do this, we are in reality only walking around the patient's problems. She was walking around her own problems. We do not strike to the heart of it. So, this is a wonderful release, that instead of self-defensively, judging such a person, just your quiet homecoming in yourself, without defense, but with looking at her in a way that makes her aware that she's seen behind her running away from herself. And this is now in a client situation where they begin to open up to the way you look at them and the way you listen to them. That, you've got this unconditional love to know that, when somebody has fallen, it's to help them up. We're not meant to be fallen creatures. We're meant to be standing upright with dignity. So, when they begin to experience that in you, all the fight is gone. Even if somebody doesn't want to be, don't want to see you, let them go. I've seen clients go out of therapy because it's almost what I am opening up to them is too great. It frightens them, but then they come back, and because it appeals to them. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. This is who I'm meant to be. I don't want to be a miserable, downcast, despairing, or even, dogmatic intellectual that knows the answers. Oh, God, it's a terrible state to be in. To have to keep that kind of attention is a very hard thing. It's so much easier and more wonderful to relax into. Wow, this is me. I like this. Yeah. Some other comments. Look, these are deep things, okay? It's not easy to put them into words. But yeah. It's here.
Diane?
Yes, Diana.
Oh, yes. It makes me think about, so I've been in therapy for about 852,000 years of my life. And so there is this, without getting into the nitty gritty because of time and everything, but there has been all those years something I have never been able to explain to the therapist. And they saw it as, if you can't explain it, this must not be the right thing for you. But really what's coming to my realization through logotherapy is, because I actually couldn't explain it, And because other people couldn't understand it, that actually was the evidence that it was something that was uniquely mine. Like I'm going to put with a capital M. It was uniquely my mission, I can't think of another word. And the fact that others couldn't understand it is almost like I just wonder sometimes as logotherapists, if we're listening to someone and even if we don't get it, we don't get what they're trying to get at, that even could be our indicator that there's something here that they're really, that's theirs, it's uniquely theirs. And even if I can't understand it, then
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. If you
Oh,
want to.
Diana, your 850,000 years of therapy has given you a great gift. A great gift. I mean, would you have known it if I've learned the most from my critics or from where things were lacking, because it made me aware of what I'm really looking for and what really makes sense to me. So, wow, there is that discovery, and it's wonderful. It's exquisite that something is so much greater than we are, but we're encompassed by it. We're taken up by it. We're loved by it. We're given worth by it. It's an everlasting life that cannot be depleted. That, thank God it can't be explained and put in a box with a full stop after it. This makes life an infinite series of discovery after discovery after a greater meaningfulness in our lives until we're bursting with it. In fact, I was thinking today that if we see the full revelation of how great our mission is as human beings, how great we are in the eyes of the life giver, if we see that revelation, our mortality would be swallowed up by immortality. In an instant, we'll be in everlasting life. Wow, that's how great it is. That's how magnificent it is. That's how awesome it is.
Wow. Wow. Can I say one more thing? But I don't, if someone else wants to say something, I don't want to trample. Oh, no, go Irene. Were you going to say something, Irene? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So what stood out for me is that the nudge in life that is calling me, and only I can say yes to, there's nothing I can do to stop that. Frankl said that salvation of man is through love and in love. And even in the Bible, it says that if I've got the gifts of prophecy and the phantom of mysteries and all of the knowledge, it won't move any mountain. But if I have the gift of love, I can do everything and anything. And through his love for me, he will keep on calling and calling and calling until I take the responsibility, accountability, and ownership and say yes to the call to fulfill what only me can fulfill in that space of life. So that's what stood out for me.
Very, very beautiful, and it underlines your uniqueness, Irene. It underlines the uniqueness of every client we see, that we cannot project onto them or put onto them. We've got to listen. We've got to find them. We've got to elucidate what Frankl said. If the will to meaning is to be elicited, meaning must be illuminated. You just illuminate what they're looking for. And it's the most exciting therapy, because you yourself as a therapist going up in this kind of interchange, like Frankl said, it's not two dialogues, it's or two monologues. A dialogue only becomes a dialogue if it refers to a meaning beyond the two of you, something that you share together, something that you realize together, something that you can see in one another. And if I can see in you what you compliment me to be. Wow, that we are that part of that beautiful painting, that stroke, that without that stroke, the painting is incomplete. So it's your uniqueness that is to be celebrated. This is how great that love is, that it can look at this little single me, this little person, and see he who saves one life is as if he saves the entire world. That's how great this little spot of a human being is. Wow.
Wow. Teria,
Oh, Diana, you've got the last word. Come. And Dida?
yeah, if there is no one else, I want to ask a question that maybe you can clarify more distinctly for me, Teria. When you said this unconscious relatedness to the unconscious God and actually to the suprahuman dimension, you said that it should come from the outside to each of us as a call. It comes from outside as a call, but it should have come from the inside. And I am asking, is there a difference whether it comes from the inside, from our unconscious, spiritual unconscious, as the voice of our conscience, or whether it comes as meaning cues from life,
Well,
from the ultimate meaning? Is it the same?
Well, you can, you can use a very simple analogy. A father that is given birth, that brought about the birth of his child. The child intuitively feels connected with the father. And it's like Frankl said, to contradict Freud, he said Freud said religion is just a projection of the father figure, that we need religion to make us feel safe. And he said, no. The father is a reflection of the divine, of a heavenly father. In other words, we're kindred spirits, that the spirit that's been breathed into me is the spirit that has created me. So, there's this connection. And when you're disconnected from that, it's like a wall plug, that if it's not plugged into a plug, and it is not plugged into the wall, the light won't come on, It, like Frankl says, an aeroplane looks like an aeroplane while it stands on the ground, but it's not an aeroplane, it takes off. In other words, when you have that sense of a feeling of connectedness, I know that I know that I know, but I don't know what I know, but I know. That kind of inexplicable sense of, wow, life is beautiful, it's wonderful, and I've got a gift of life, I'm part of life, I feel there's life in me, and I've got to give expression to it, otherwise I can't keep it all bottled up. I know that I want to be part of and to enjoy everything that is out there for me, for me, for me. It's it's like a loved child. Okay, it's like a loved child.
So could you say that it's the same, the meaning cues that comes from inside as from the spiritual unconscious, or from ultimate meaning from life that you get?
Well, if you were created in the image of the divine, and you intuitively know that you are linked, or you seek that link, the will to meaning, to find the meaning of life. What am I here for? Who am I? The call that comes from outside, like Frankel said, is very simple. He says, through the conscience, the transcendent personat is sounding through. And we experience that sounding through, not as some abstract force, but as a person, as an entity that loves, as an entity that seeks connection with you. And so what is the call that comes to you? Adam, where are you? I've created you for myself, for you to become a reflection of all that you can be, something glorious, something beautiful, something good, something wholesome. Where are you? Come. And that's the call that elicited, yes, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to be. This is where I want to go. So, without that tension, without that, the ability to know that you are, to be able to hear the call and to respond to it, and without that, cannot work by itself unless the call comes to you and the connection is made and the connection is meaning. This is, and how, and whether you see it in these ultimate terms or not, meaning is a sense of connection. It's when you feel, wow, this is good. This makes me feel good. I feel connected to it. It speaks to me. It draws me. It affirms me. Yes, this is what I want. So even, so you don't even have to think in the profound levels that it's God who's speaking to you. But wow, that's the eventual discovery, isn't it? That's the eventual discovery. That's why Frankl said there's no such thing as an irreligious person. We all have this inherent sense of wanting to connect to the one who gave us life for a purpose, for a great and glorious purpose, to overcome everything that is contrary to life victoriously, right? And in the end, that you are a part of this whole in the most exquisite sense of the word. So I think we should end. It's past 7. We can go on. This is. But listen, it's so wonderful that we just allow our thoughts to be elicited. Why don't you just do that? Because we tend to run away from ourselves so often and run away from life. And I think we do damage to ourselves in doing that. It's like you say, Dida, have that Shabbat, have that time of contemplation. Like Frankel said, it's when he is utterly alone and just being, in the sense of connectedness too, that he experiences, that there is a revelation of that there's somebody there, and that you infinitely, you're part of this infinite greatness that gives you such a surge of life, that you can burst with it. Okay, in the end you will burst with it. So right, I think the only thing I wanted to actually say to you, these are the two things, if I can just then finally highlight it, that we cannot take God out of the picture in logotherapy, and we have to take God out of the picture in concentrating on doing what he's asking us to do. And it's on this level that we work, whether somebody has no idea of any God, but they're searching for meaning. We've got to make them experience meaning. And Frankl said, if we do that, we open the door to that eventual breakthrough into the divine. But we never preach, and we never dogmatically sit there thinking we've got the answers. We help our client to discover the answers themselves at whatever stage of the search they are, every step along the way. Do you despise the little baby that gets onto its feet for the first time? Isn't it beautiful? So the same way, if somebody just gets onto their feet and they stumble and fall again, revere the step. Focus in on the step. Encourage them to walk. Okay? All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
I did.
Thank you. Bye-bye.